Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying my last couple of videos. My name is Sarah and I make videos about movies, TV shows. I moved to Philly earlier this year, so I do have a couple of vlogs about that, just walking around, getting familiar with the city, and I did find a few cool places to get a cup of coffee and to go thrifting. So be on the lookout for those videos as well. But if you came here for the movie reviews, I have one for you, Candyman. Now, I have seen all three Candyman movies. In particular, the first two I have rewatched. So if you're not familiar, the Candyman is a truly modern urban legend. The legend of the Candyman, who, if you say his name 5 times while looking in a mirror, he'll come out and kill you. Why would anybody do that? We don't know, but they keep doing it, and so we have these movies. In this version, which is sort of like a refresh, I guess you could call it a sequel. It is like 20 years plus into the future. While the story of the Candyman exists, that's not where our particular story starts. There is a young up-and-coming artist who is experiencing creative block, and one night while his girlfriend's brother and partner were over, the brother tells the story of the Candyman. And as these things do with creative people, it got his imagination going, and so he decides to do a bit more research and look into the Candyman. After getting some negative feedback about his attempts to come back to the art scene, so he decides to look in a rather unconventional place for inspiration. While doing research, he ends up traveling to the neighborhood Cabrini-Green, where a lot of the sightings of the Candyman were said to have occurred. In particular, the story of Helen Lyle from the first movie. It made the papers, so when he was doing his research, he found out about the story and where it had occurred, and so he decides to go visit that site. And while he's there, someone who's been in the neighborhood a long time tells him the story of the Candyman and what he remembers being a kid from that neighborhood during that time. And this sort of gets him whipped up into a fervor, gets Anthony whipped up into a fervor of inspiration, and he decides to create from that. And so him bringing the Candyman into the art world as his inspiration and sharing the story of Candyman and the legend around him, basically people start getting chopped. It's familiar, but it's not. It's new. There's still canon from the original movie, but there's a lot more depth and a lot more detail in the story. So first of all, I love this movie. I think it's scary. I think it's different. And I love the way that the story branches off in so many different directions. Like, the first Candyman movie came out in the 90s, and it stays pretty limited in terms of like the different perspectives that we get to see. Helen, her colleague, it stays very focused. Here we get to see multiple storylines of different characters during different time periods, moments that were not mundane moments. They're critical moments in their personal development, and we learn more about their characters by witnessing these scenes. And surprise, surprise, it's not about the internet. It's not about social media. It is not something that's driven by that, and I know that is something that appears a lot in horror movies lately, like the internet is new. The way that information is spread is by word of mouth. It's less about the single character of the Candyman, Daniel Robitaille. It's less about him as an individual and more about the collective, which I thought was so interesting and so powerful in this version of the story. As far as the storyline, I'm glad that we get these multiple perspectives because you're always surprised by what you're learning, not necessarily because of the supernatural element. And then we're moving on. And I appreciate that the transitions from the past to the present are very clear, because it would be easy to get lost in all of it. I love how the city itself plays a huge role, how big and sprawling the city is, how we keep seeing different phases of it and people's different perspectives on that. And everybody is always trying to find the source of something, the reason for something happening. In this case, it just is. And what I love is how some people are like, oh yeah, the Candyman is real, and we don't mess with that, which eliminates the problem entirely. But some people are like, well, is he or isn't he? And other people are like, that's none of my business. So I'm just gonna keep moving on. So I love the different situations that bring out the Candyman. Somebody gets chopped in a bathroom, somebody gets chopped in an art gallery. You know, we see all of these different places around the city. It just makes it feel very full. It makes it feel like these are real people, and this just happens to be a supernatural occurrence that's happening to them through something that they have invited into their lives. And there's no way to stop it. There's no way to take it back. It's like you've made this choice and it has a consequence. And the story moves forward at a very steady pace. Even when events start to really kick up tension and emotion, the story continues to move forward steadily. We didn't marinate too much in different events or flashbacks and things. We just kept it moving forward. And I really like that because it kept the story from lagging, because it's long. This is a long movie. And it would be really easy to just stretch out certain scenes or add in a bunch of details where it wasn't necessary. But no, we just keep it moving forward. The horror of the story comes at you from all of these different directions. It comes at you through Anthony's transformation, what is happening to his body physically. It comes at you through the murders themselves by the Candyman. It comes at you through their interactions with the police. It comes at you through all of these different directions. And I really loved how many themes that they include in the story, that the characters go through, that the characters are witnessing. And yet it doesn't feel like you're trying to do too much. It just feels like it's so seamlessly and steadily engaged that it doesn't feel like you're trying to accomplish too many things at once. So I really enjoyed it and I highly recommend it. I would give Candyman a 4 out of 5. Something that is a remake #1, which is difficult. Something that is a cult classic is also difficult. But they managed to make not only the Candyman real and add more to the origins of this supernatural event, they also created real round characters, which I love. Y'all know I love, a real fleshed out character and a full storyline. I feel like we got both of those things within a horror movie that's set in modern time, involves all these different elements that you may not be familiar with, like the art world. I love that detail, seeing an artist that is experiencing creative block, his girlfriend who, I'm not quite sure what her title is, but she works for an art gallery and arranges all these things and is trying to break into her own. I loved seeing all those different things come into play in this story, because it's not just about the Candyman. There's so many other things going on in the story. That character just is forcing change and forcing all these transformations of characters. If you guys haven't seen it, it's not overrated. You should definitely give it a watch. And for a remake, I approve. I do. I approve of this remake, because after the first movie, the story just started going off the rails a little bit, and That third one was just a whole mess. Please let me know what you guys think. Of course, I love at the very end of the movie, there is it's like a story that's played out with light and paper cutouts. It's so beautiful and so artistic, and so like the way that they tell the story is fantastic. It's entirely without dialogue. It's just these scenes. And I loved it. I thought it was a great addition, something very original and unique at the end of the film. So I highly recommend you guys check it out, as I said. And thank you guys for spending your time with me. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time.